You start to tell a story. It's about your daughter or your begonia or your cat, how it died or you thought it might die, or it didn't die but you know it will, and knowing weighs you down but lifts it up, the cat or the begonia, which is beginning to bloom, or the daughter who is also, into a light so bright you can't see, and your tongue dries, and all the words trail off into radiance.
Veronica Patterson was born in Rochester, New York. She grew up in Ithaca with a sister, two brothers, and a beloved family dog named Beauregard. She graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Cornell University and continued her education at the University of Michigan. And while earning her master's degree there, she met Evan Patterson, a native of Loveland, Colorado. They fell in love and soon married, and have two daughters, Carrie Lee and Sarah. Veronica went on to earn a Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing from Warren Wilson College, and ultimately a doctorate degree from the University of Northern Colorado. Over the years, she has taught poetry and writing classes for a multitude of schools and organizations, including Colorado State University, the University of Northern Colorado, Ames Community College, the Osher Institute, and Pathways Hospice. She has edited several magazines and publications, including a stint as editor-in-chief for Peacework at Interweave Press. Her poetry has appeared in over 50 literary journals and has won many awards and accolades: the New York University Press Poetry Prize, the Colorado Book Award, the Women Writing the West Award, the Gell Poetry Prize, and the Campbell Corner Poetry Prize. Her publications include 5 full-length books of poetry with fabulous titles: How to Make a Terrarium, Swan, What Shores, Thresh and Hold, And It Had Rained, Sudden White Fan. She has published 2 chapbooks, one of prose poems titled This Is the Strange Part, and Maneuvers, lyric and elegiac poems about the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Veronica has also helped to create 2 collaborative works, one with photographer Rhonda Stone and another with Nancy Jacobson and Pathways Hospice, on writing through grief. In addition to all of those achievements, Veronica Patterson has been an ambassador for poetry in Northern Colorado. She has collaborated on, organized, and inspired nearly every poetry event in the city of Loveland for more than 30 years. Poetry inspired by art, art inspired by poetry, printed poetry hanging in the windows of local restaurants and shoe stores, spoken poetry at the library, at the museum, spoken poetry on street corners, and nationally renowned poets invited by Veronica and others in the community to come to Loveland, Colorado and read their poetry at the Foot Lagoon and the Rialto Theater. Throughout the years, Veronica Patterson has won 3 residencies and 2 Colorado Council of the Arts fellowships. And now she has finally been named the first Poet Laureate of Loveland, Colorado.
She was responsible to her calling. She worshipped her teachers.
Her life is, in a way, royal. She has subjects, many notebooks, lots of punctuation.
She went home to her domestic interior.
There is a town beneath her town, a lake beneath this lake, swans beneath pelicans, and so forth.
She flaunted her sexuality in secret.
Sometimes the layers turn over, composting.
Sometimes she cried all night. She was the town crier.
The undertown comes up like crocuses, purple and gold, bright and ignorant.
They knew her in a small town.
For her, the little town is a place to see how morning comes to streets, alleys, faces. A place to be contented as wind through trees can make one.
She was flagrantly alone, but included everyone.
She recites to herself, the canyon west of town whose north wall catches morning, the wars far away, the close watch she keeps.
Hello, my name is Evan Oakley and I teach at Ames Community College, where I am the chair of English. And I've been asked to set my comments in the context of Veronica's association with Ames. But my real job, like everybody who's doing these videos, is to praise and embarrass the very humble Veronica, and I'm looking forward to it.
Veronica Patterson.
Veronica Patterson.
Veronica Patterson.
Veronica Patterson.
I ever was in with Veronica.
Veronica.
Veronica. Veronica.
I first met Veronica 30-some years ago when she was teaching a night class in creative writing for the college. It was held on a dark upstairs platform of the unrenovated Loveland Museum. Every class period, one came into the dim museum, ascended a staircase into a small dome of light, beaming down on a table, where Veronica presided, beneath her own nimbus of silvering hair. It was a bare, simple platform, almost like an empty stage, floating in the dark above the art and artifacts of local history. Veronica would have with her only a few props, a book or two, and writing prompts. But also her voice, a beautiful voice, gentle, amused, and always interested. That's what drew me in. What you thought, where you had been, where you were going, and what you had to say. She brought the gift of a discerning and humane attention to. Like the best teachers, once you came into Veronica's orbit as a writer and student, she remembered what you said, what you wrote, and often returned to you on some later day or even a year later with a line, an image, or an anecdote related to what you had been saying or writing. And such attention is a gift in our society, something one usually gets only from psychotherapists and priests, and sometimes teachers. Veronica was and is such a teacher.
There's a word that describes her if you consider its many meanings, and that word is grace. A quiet elegance, goodwill, mercy, and the embodiment of something sacred.
A person who has worked with words and has helped others to appreciate and know the power of them.
I became inspired watching her do her shows at the museum.
Writing, reading, snacks, coffee cups, and friendships.
Her humor, her imagination.
Grief and pain were distilled into poetry, and memories became vivid stories.
Veronica taught us to look in the dusty corners of ourselves and find something long abandoned and pick it up.
I've seen her go out of her way to visit everyone's studio on any given day, and she will always find something to compliment and something to share.
She said, follow this thing down whatever path it takes you, and we were changed.
And once she's turned and walked down the hall, you find yourself wondering at the mystifying way that she got you thinking about a certain something and how that applies to your task for the day or to your life.
You see, many religions have the idea that the kingdom of heaven is within you. She showed me that the door of the cathedral opens inward.
But at all times, it was Veronica lifting the process, like Gandalf the Grey behind the scenes, bringing key individuals into further connection with each other. She did this through the gentle persuasion of her personality and charisma, which is, if you think of it, how nearly everything poetry related has happened in Loveland for decades.
50 years ago.
For almost 30 years.
I think more than 30 years.
And back in 1999,
In 2009,
I met Veronica just a few years ago.
now many years later,
Reading poetry to the people of Loveland and having the people of Loveland respond to it.
Veronica and I were artist-poet collaborators.
So in Poets in the Park,
that began a 14-year program of writing through loss at Pathways Hospice.
we published a book.
4 times a year, we continue to do shows at the museum.
For instance, our lab got together years ago.
The Writer's Lab, which has nothing to do with laboratory, it has a lot to do with Labrador Retriever.
To do a workshop about poetry. But instead of lasting only 6 weeks, we have been together for 15 years.
And all because of Veronica and her love of the language and her skill with the language and her artistry. And that brings us all together.
By either leading things herself or by urging others, poetry events happen often here because of her vision, her leadership, her friendships, her, as always, unflagging interest in poetry, and most especially her interest in the creativity of other people. So many know exactly what I mean and remember perfectly how it was for them in their own journey, meeting Veronica and for the first time experiencing the magic of her attention. There has never been and likely never will be a better candidate for Poet Laureate of Loveland than Veronica Patterson. But for me, she remains always that teacher, sitting quietly alone under a dome of light, her harahela, pen in hand, in a dark, cavernous space, waiting to lead some night students into the light.
Life is like that, browning at the edges before you realize you talk begonia, he listens geranium, and you're both wrong, but quiet in a silence, browning at the edges when you start to tell a story.